Good evening, my fellow Americans. It is the 26th of March, 2025, and this is A Quiet Rage. If you've been paying any attention to the news the last couple of days, it will have been impossible for you to miss out on the top story, which is a security or a spillage is the proper terminology. It's not a leak, it's a spillage of classified information on a third-party chat application called Signal, which is more secure than regular text messaging or, say, Facebook Messenger or something like that. But it is not secure. It is not an authorized forum in which to discuss classified operations. A leak would be intentionally divulging classified information. A spillage is accidentally or through negligence, which is what this is. Now, how do I know that? Well, I was a submarine sailor for 20 years. I've got a whole wall of pictures and plaques and certificates and stuff. I got stuff in binders and folders. 20 years I spent as a member of the intelligence community. A submarine is an intelligence gathering vessel. And I'm going to have to be very careful what I talk about in this video, because in my 20 years of submarine service, I deployed in support of national tasking and conducted submarine operations to that end, to further national security and etc. I forget some of the official terminology, but in support of national tasking is one of the terms that we are allowed to say. So the Submarine Force, often referred to as the silent service, one, because stealth is our primary defense against adversaries, and two, because we, as a matter of course, don't discuss submarine operations. We just don't. And there's a very good reason for that. It's because if we were to discuss with people that don't, in an unsecure manner, in an unsecure venue, with people that don't have the need to know and the clearance required, the methods that we use, our operating schedule, our operating sorry, let me mute that so that doesn't happen again. Our operating tactics, these things could be better known and understood by our adversaries and used against us. So we don't talk about submarine operations. I couldn't tell my parents over the phone that I was going out to sea until we were within 24 hours of going to sea. Even if it was leaving Pearl Harbor, going out and operating in the local Hawaiian Op area for 3 days, 7 days, 12 days, whatever it would be, I was not allowed, not authorized to disclose to my parents, who love me very dearly and would never do anything intentionally to jeopardize my safety, the integrity of our mission, or the safety of my ship and my fellow shipmates. They would never do that. I know that. But they didn't have an actual need to know when I was going out to sea until very shortly, and I couldn't tell them how long it was going to be when I would go out to sea. So I am filled with rage. I am seething at the headlines that we're seeing, the stories that we're seeing in the news and in congressional hearings. And we have learned that Mike Waltz, the national security advisor to President Trump, accidentally, inadvertently added Mr. Goldberg, what's his first name? Who works for The Atlantic. He's a reporter, he's an editor. Accidentally added a reporter to an unsecured group chat on Signal discussing planned attacks on Houthi rebel targets in Yemen. There are a number of problems. The primary it's hard to know where to start. The fact that this editor was added to this group chat is not the primary problem. Not even close. Such a chat should not exist. If it does exist, it should not be used to discuss specific airframes to be used, specific times of the launch of aircraft, or specific times of intended ordnance on target. Those are operational details that, if discovered by our adversaries, could put in jeopardy the people conducting the missions and the ability of those missions to be completed safely or at all. And everybody in that group chat should have known that. Everybody. Except the reporter seemed to be the only one bothered by the fact that they were discussing times and details of the types of aircraft to be used in a unsecured group chat. The one person who doesn't have a security clearance did the right thing, knew the right answer, that this is not right. And he published an article in The Atlantic explaining that this had happened and published redacted portions of the group chat to show this. Look, I'm not making this up. I'm in this group chat. I don't know why or how, but here I am, and this is what they discussed broadly. It wasn't until the director of the CIA, the director of the FBI, and Tulsi Gabbard, the director of the Office of National Intelligence. I'm probably saying that wrong. You know who she is. She said in particular, I know, under oath, that there was no classified information in that group chat. And it was, by the way, the Secretary of Defense, the highest ranking, the Vice President was the highest ranking person in that group chat. Second highest was the Secretary of Defense. And I don't know what experience Pete Hegseth had with classified information when he was in the Army, I believe. I only know what I was privy to and what I was trained on in the Navy, in the Submarine Force. But it was only after the Secretary of Defense called this reporter a liar, and Tulsi Gabbard, under oath, in a congressional hearing, a Senate hearing, said there is no classified information in that group chat. Some people have opined that perhaps she is technically correct. She's not. Just let's get this out of. Just because there wasn't a banner at the top and bottom of the message that said top secret, not for release to foreign nationals, whatever. Just because it wasn't marked as classified, top secret is a classification, that doesn't mean that the information itself is not classified. It is. It very much is. I couldn't tell my parents what our operating schedule was because that information is classified. I could look at our schedule on our secure network on the ship, but there is no difference whatsoever between me memorizing the schedule, calling my parents and giving them exact days of when we're going out to sea, when we're coming back, and how long, etc. There is no difference between doing that and printing out a copy of the schedule and mailing it to them with the classification banners still on the paper. There is no difference. The information is classified, top secret, whatever it may be, whatever level it is. You can't memorize it and then say it out loud or put it in a group chat, and the classification of that information remains. And it is your duty as a custodian of classified information, in this example, Pete Hegseth and everybody else that was in that group chat, it was their responsibility to safeguard that information, and they failed to do so. And here's another thing. I want to make it clear. I've said 20 years in the Submarine Force. I have experience with classified information, and I have to be very careful about what I say about that information and about what I did, what I remember, what I was there for. I'm not trying to puff up. I'm not trying to make myself sound cool. I'm just trying to establish that I have an expertise when it comes to classified information. I wouldn't consider myself an expert. I have an expertise. Submarine operations, specifically. As a submarine sailor, baseline, everybody has a secret clearance. From whether you're a nuke, back aft, making hot water, making steam, making screw go roundy so the ship goes that way. Whether you're a mechanic down in the bilge working on hydraulics or high pressure air, whether you're a cook, a yeoman, a supply clerk, whatever, or a storekeeper, secret, baseline, because of the operations that we do. Some rates, like sonar tech, like fire control technician, radioman, etc., have to have a top secret clearance because the nature of our rate, the nature of our job out to sea is that we are conducting classified operations and or handling the classified information gathered from it or transmitting it for radiomen on classified networks, etc. On my final sea tour, I was qualified as a sonar supervisor and stood sonar supervisor on mission in support of national taskings, and my top secret clearance had to be upgraded to a top secret SCI, or secret special compartmentalized information. Like I said, I'm forgetting some things. It's higher than top secret, And there are classifications higher than that, the names of which I can't say because they are classified. And you don't have the need to know that. I don't even have the need to know it anymore. I could get every sonar tech that was on the ship on my last mission, on my last sea tour. I could get us all for here in my house for a reunion. We could talk about all kinds of stuff. But we could not, even though each of us was on the ship when that mission was conducted, when that information was gathered, we would not be authorized to discuss it. Even though there's nobody else in the room. For one, my house is not a skiff. It's not a secret compartment. It is not hardened against espionage. For two, there is no need for us to be discussing it outside of a brief. If something had happened that it is quite common when a ship comes back from a deployment, the captain, maybe the executive officer and the weapons officer will prepare a brief that they provide to the commodore of the squadron, and various other area commanders and combatant commanders on what we did. But that happens in a secure building, in a skiff. Everybody's briefed, everybody knows, and it's repeated anyway at the beginning and end of the presentation. This information is classified at the level that it's classified. Don't take any notes. Safeguard this information accordingly. So I know what I'm talking about, okay? I'm not just repeating, for any of you, if any of you MAGA cultists are still watching, which I doubt, I'm not repeating talking points that I saw on the news. I know what the fuck I'm talking about. I lived this shit for 20 years. I have an expertise when it comes to classified information. In the submarine community, we have a particular hatred for a man, and I'll put a link from the FBI's website, actually, about this man, John Anthony Walker Jr. We have a particular hatred for that man in the Submarine Force because he sold submarine secrets to the Soviet Union. In particular, he gave them cryptographic technology and information. Submarines use cryptographic technology to transmit and receive information when at sea so that that information cannot be decoded. We can't, only the submarine transmitting and the facility on shore receiving it have the encryption to be able to encode and decode at either end, whether whoever is sending to whoever. And crypto is only used for a short period of time, and then it is destroyed so that it cannot fall into the wrong hands. And then you get new crypto, and you got to use that for a little while, and then that's destroyed. What Walker did was he kept that crypto and was giving it to the Soviets, so they were able to go back because they had recorded transmissions that they could not decode. They had recordings for years, decades. And then when John Walker gave them the decoding, then they could go back through this catalog of transmissions that they had saved, that they had gathered, and decode all of it and work backwards to figure out what we'd been doing and he gave up the game. The very same thing, I guarantee you, is happening right now on Signal. This is, I have no doubt that these fucking morons in the Trump administration, who should know better, have been using Signal to discuss other operations. That I am certain, I will bet my next paycheck that they have other Signal chat groups that they have discussed other operations. I am confident in that. So if adversary nations weren't already looking at that app, as soon as the headline hit that these idiots in the Secretary of Defense, being the one who put the information in the group chat, these people have, these adversaries have been, if they weren't already, or if they're not now, no, if they weren't already, they certainly are now, going back and looking, oh yeah, let's connect the dots. These people seem to think that this app is secure, and they are talking about classified information there. Let's go back and let's see what we can find. Just like John Walker allowed the Soviets to do. Same thing. And it fills me with rage. Fills me with rage. I'm filled with rage because I know nothing's going to happen. There will be no repercussions. I am just as certain that they've been using Signal to talk about other classified topics as I am certain that nothing will happen. There will be no consequences. If Pete Hegseth had any honor whatsoever, he would have resigned as soon as this article became public. If the President Trump, the president of these United States, President Trump, had any cared at all about national security, actually, he would fire the Secretary of Defense for cause. And everybody, Tulsi Gabbard should be tendering her resignation. Everybody in that group chat that didn't do anything to safeguard the information, that the fact that nobody in that group chat said, hey, SecDef, Secretary of Defense, that is classified information. We should not be discussing details like that in an unsecure venue like this. The fact that none of them did means they all should, minimum, should be resigning. Some of them should be fired. Tulsi Gabbard should be fired for cause for lying under oath about the fact that there was classified information in there. And if she, she knew. She lied. She knew, and she lied about it. But nothing's going to happen. How do I know this? Because our president, the president of the United States, doesn't give a shit about classified information. Now, again, if any MAGA people are still watching, which I doubt at this point, you can try and point to President Biden having classified information, classified documents in his home in Delaware after he left the White House as vice president. Yeah, okay. Who's the president right now? If he wanted to do something about that, he could direct the pertinent organization, law enforcement organization, to arrest the former president, Biden, for violation of classified document handling protocols. He'd have to do the same thing for his own vice president from the previous administration, Mike Pence, because he had classified documents at his house too. And then he'd have to continue the investigation into himself, all the documents that he had in a fucking bathroom stacked in Mar-a-Lago. And we have him on tape. We have audio tape of him saying, here's a classified document. I shouldn't be showing you this, but here it is anyway, because I'm a fucking idiot. Can you tell I'm mad? The 2 vice presidential retaining of classified documents, that to me, I take that seriously. I do. And in both cases, the individuals in question, Mike Pence and Joe Biden, said, oh, you know what? Yep, I do have these. Here you go. Let me give those back to you. That didn't happen with Trump in Mar-a-Lago. He stonewalled and tried to hold on to them. He obstructed the investigation rather than cooperating. The 2 vice presidents, that to me points to a systemic issue that in the White House for at least 2 administrations, there was a systemic problem that classified documents were not being properly handled. And I would like to think that during the Biden presidency that issue was addressed by the appropriate entities. It's not something you would necessarily hear about. I could try and do some research, but it would... This incident, this Signal group chat, is an indication of a complete lack of understanding and give a shit, frankly, about the handling, the safeguarding of classified military information. The spillage of which could have put the pilots that conducted those missions in jeopardy. And it's, again, I need it to be understood, it's not the fact that the reporter was in the group chat that is problematic. It's not the fact that the reporter published a report saying that he had received said information. And it's not the fact that once, when called out, when lied about, he released that classified information. Again, he doesn't have a clearance. And that information was not declassified after the operation. Just because an operation is complete doesn't mean that that information is no longer classified. There is a declassification process that takes years. The problem is that members of the administration in the intelligence community discussed classified details of military operations in a non-secured venue. That is the problem. These fucking people don't take this seriously enough. And that is cause for them to be removed from their jobs. Plain and simple. My first shore duty in the Navy, I supervised the restricted barracks at Naval Submarine School in Groton, Connecticut. For 2.5 years, I stood bailiff for over 200 captain's masts. And one of them, in particular, the Submarine Force had just started the new information technician, IT, whatever, computers and stuff. we were just starting that rate in the Submarine Force. We don't have very many rate specifications in it. There's only like 15 different rates in a submarine because it's a very small vessel. We were starting up the IT rate in the Submarine Force, and a new IT A school. A school is where you learn your rating. I went to sonar A school. People go to mechanics A school, electricians A school, fire control technicians A school, IT A school. There was this whole class that got caught. One or more of them brought their camera phones into the schoolhouse, which was a secure building. So they shouldn't have had their phones in the building. That's violation number one. Then during cleanup after class one day, when a couple of them were cleaning in the instructor's office, they took a picture of the answer key that was on the desk of their instructor and then shared that with their classmates so that everybody could get a good score on this test. Everyone that got the picture and used it to cheat went to captain's mast and got at least some time on restriction. And the 2 or 3 people that actually took the pictures and transmitted them to everybody else, they had their security clearance taken away. I think one of them was kicked out of the Navy and 2 others were kicked out of the Submarine Force and sent to the surface. We take this stuff seriously, is my point. People's careers either don't get started or end because of much less egregious spillage, leakage, divulgence, etc. of classified information than what happened on March 15th. And nothing's going to happen. I'll bet you Pete Hegseth is the Secretary of Defense well after this. I don't think anything's going to happen to him. I don't think anything's going to happen to Tulsi Gabbard. Mike Waltz, the National Security Advisor, again, a guy that should know better, who put the reporter, Mr. Goldberg, into the group chat, and nothing's going to happen to him. I mean, maybe they might pillory him just to, to try and like, oh, look, we punished him. Don't look at the rest of us. Maybe, but yeah, I don't expect consequences of any sort, which is unfortunate. It's infuriating. It really is. As a person who spent 20 years, my entire Navy career, in the intelligence community, safeguarding information like this, it's infuriating. It really is. So I think I covered everything that I wanted to on that. As usual, I'm sure as soon as I hit publish on this episode and it's live, I was like, oh yeah, I wanted to talk about this, that, and the third. That's fine. So such is life. I didn't take any notes. I wrote the date at the top of the page, and I was just like, I don't know where to start. I'm just gonna start talking. But don't make me tap the sign. So what can we do? You can feel free, if somebody's trying to argue with you that the reporter is the guy at fault or this is all being blown out of proportion, feel free to send them my way. I know I will set them straight. Show them this video. So I think we should be pressuring the Democratic Party leadership. I think we should be pressuring them to make a change to the bylaws so that any candidate running for federal office or to be considered for a federal appointment should have to, before they can be on the ballot or be nominated for a position in an administration, they should have to pass an interim security clearance investigation. You should not be on the ballot for federal office if you don't have at least an interim security clearance. I thought I had this idea back during the first Trump presidency. I thought, what can, because it shouldn't be up to the parties themselves. That should, at some point, that should have been made law. That should have been added to the Constitution. When it discusses the qualifications for president, vice president, senator, representatives, included in all of those should be the person in question as a candidate must have passed the security clearance. I don't know how we've gotten to 2025 and nobody's thought, let's put that into law. That would have prevented a President Trump in the very first place. That's why I had that. That's where that idea came from for me. So we should be pressuring the Democratic Party to at least amend their bylaws, and potentially when we have control of the House and or Senate to try and push that through as to make that law. Amend the Constitution or make it a law. Whatever needs to be done, do that. As always, it's very important that we find like-minded people, that we gather with fellow sane people and Democrats. Sane people. I recently went to another event hosted by the Virginia Beach Democrats, of which I'm a member. It was an annual breakfast that is held during Women's History Month, which March is. So happy Women's History Month. Can't believe I didn't mention that earlier. It was a breakfast. So one of our delegates to the state assembly here in Virginia, she came and spoke for a little bit. And one of the women who I've seen speak before at a VB Democrats meeting, Shannon Taylor, running for state attorney general for Virginia, she was there and spoke as well. And again, it was leaving that event, I felt energized and inspired and empowered and ready to go. So if you're feeling in the doldrums, if you're feeling like you're the only one, find your local chapter, find your local Democrats group, join, make one. If there isn't one, make one. Or just we have to keep the faith. We have to keep fellowship with each other. And otherwise, we're gonna fall into depression about this situation, because this is still early. We've got a long way to go yet, And it's going to be a lot easier to go that distance if you've got compatriots. So find people, like-minded folks. Gather amongst them. I'm about to get really busy with coaching T-ball. Our season starts on Saturday. I intend for that not to interfere with our somewhat regular schedule of posting episodes. I had intended for this episode to be all about Vice President J.D. Vance and how he's a lying piece of shit. He'll probably give me something else in the next week that I can add to the couple of things I specifically wanted to talk about. So yeah, I'll probably still do a J.D. Vance is a liar, liar, pants on fire episode. There was another thing that I meant to. Anyway, I have done episodes at request already. So if you've got something you want me to dig into a little bit, you want to hear my take on something, feel free, put it in the comments or send me a message directly, and I'll we'll see. No guarantee. And my take might not be what you're looking for. It might, you never know. Yeah, find your people, and the next time you talk to your elected Democrat, ask them if they would support adding a security clearance requirement to candidacy for Democratic federal office holders. See if we can get that going. As always, keep your powder dry, because you never know. It's wild out there. And we'll see you next time. Good night, my fellow Americans.